Okay, so the next thing I would like to demonstrate is how I do time codes on my videos. So if you look at some of my videos, you'll probably notice that some of them have time code navigation. So the way I used to do that is I just kind of manually wrote them out in the description of the video, and then YouTube recognizes that and applies a time code to the videos for easy navigation. The problem with that is it's a real pain to do that way because you have to kind of figure out the exact timing, and then sometimes you're within a few seconds, so you have to take some extra time to make sure you're precise. And not having audio waveform really sucks, especially if you want to get the timing of the time codes nice, because you don't want to like be ahead a extra couple seconds if you were to skip there, then have some missed context. That's never good. So I would like to show what I do now, where I basically do it right in my video editor itself, and it's a lot easier than manually writing it out. So I would like to show how I do time codes in DaVinci Resolve. So yeah, let's just hop onto it. So I have this blank timeline. I'm just gonna do some quick and dirty time codes just for demonstration purposes. So actually I'm gonna close this out, and this is probably what the layout is gonna be by default. This is my layout most of the time. So I have this timeline right here. Let's do it on this video. So let's say that I'm at the intro point right now. I also have waveform on the video too. As you can see, that's quite nice to have also. It makes the timing a lot easier. You don't even really have to listen to it to be able to time it, which is also kind of nice. So I have markers that typically mean different things based on the color. I create fuchsia markers for time codes. That's a personal choice. So that color right there, I just set it to that. So anytime I use a shortcut, it'll do that. I usually hit M for that. So this is my first time code, right? What is it? This is the intro. The name is basically what I label the time codes. So then let's say I come to this next point here. So let's say right here I'm talking about some sort of technique. So I hit M twice to make that come up. Then I might say something like the technique. That's a time code. And it's also worth mentioning that I typically zoom in a fair bit. And see, right now, this jumps right into the middle of talking, which is not what I want. So I want to make sure I'm not jumping into some random abrupt segment. So that's at the beginning of the 38 second. If I go to the 39 second, that happens well after I start talking. So the 38 second is where I want to be, and it rounds down. Pretend that this last number 05 isn't there at all. That's the second that the time code will be marked for. If I want to change my mind on the timing, rather than manually typing in a different time, I can quite literally slide it. And then in the editor, the timing will automatically change because the timing is all based on where these markers are. So yeah, then I just simply do that for the rest of the video. So let's say right around, I believe this is where I summarize everything. So I'm rounding down. What's the closest second to where I start talking? That's a little bit close. I'm gonna give myself a second of headroom, and I don't worry about rounding down to 00. Doesn't make sense because even right here, it'll do 9 minutes 21 seconds. So I'll just create a marker like right there, for example. And notice I can do it pretty quickly because of that time code. So summarizing technique, for example, that might be what I want. So then let's see. Let me go to my next moment. Okay, so I can see scenario 1. That's a starting point right there. I'll probably do it right at that 11:49. So scenario, and I'll copy and paste it because I happen to know there's multiple of them. Scenario 1. Then I just go to the next one right here. That's where it changes to the second one. So this is about where I want it to be, 1354. Scenario 2. See how quickly I could create that marker. Then if the timing changes at a later point, I just slide this accordingly, and I always go with the waveform, which is pretty nice. Okay, so that's where it goes to scenario 3. That's a good point. So scenario 3. Then I want to get the outro. The outro is right about there. That's a good point. Then we see the transition and everything like that. Outro. Okay, now I have all my time codes basically. See, that wasn't so bad. It just took a while when I started explaining stuff, but once I'm actually doing stuff, it's not so bad. So once I have all the time codes, then I can basically go to index right here. And then I can show markers, fuchsia, because that's dedicated for YouTube time codes. And then I have all these time codes, and you can kind of change the view. I do record in and notes because that's essentially the time codes right there, except we're ignoring that frame number. So how do I export it? I go to here, export edit index, and then I want to basically just export it to here because I'm actually going to end up using a program to parse out basically what I want specifically. That's not really mandatory, but it was the easiest for me, so I'm just gonna be like crash diet codes. And then if you're in an older version of Resolve besides 18, I believe you have to go to the timeline, export, and then edit index would be under this menu. That's how it used to be before Resolve 18. So now I got that exported. So basically I have this Python script that essentially parses out all the lines except for what I want. So yeah, if I open up my crash diet codes, this is kind of not a very useful format because it's got like all the different properties that can show up. So obviously before I export, it's important to make sure I'm showing the correct marker colors. And then what's also nice is during the video itself, I think there's a way to temporarily disable certain markers so that they don't show up in the timeline and they're not in the way, but they still exist. I can't remember how to do that, but just know that it's possible to turn off certain marker colors temporarily, then turn it back on later. So like if I have 1,000,000 markers, it slows down the timeline significantly. And in that case, I might turn off some of the time codes. And then later on, if I need to retime any of these, I can just slide the marker accordingly and boom, I retimed it. Just like that. So anyway, I just showed, this is a file that's exported. So how do I get what I want alone? Well, that Python script that I just showed right here essentially filtered it down to only the stuff I want. I could copy and paste the code if you want to do something like this yourself, but it loads the timecodes file. So actually, I have a generic file called timecodes right here. So what I actually do is I copy the name of that file, delete it, change the name of that to timecodes, and then I would run the Python scripts. Python 3 filter timecode. This is called 18 because the format between Resolve 17 and 18 is a bit different. I had to update it accordingly. But when I run this, then it opens it right up automatically in my text editor. And this is what I want to put in the YouTube description. So I can just copy and paste it right in the description. See, it's actually not so bad, is it? I mean, it took a little bit of getting used to with explaining just now, but like once I get into it, then it's not so bad. So let's say I change the time codes. I adjust it like this. You can imagine this is much faster than manually typing it out and using the YouTube interface for it. Let's say those are the new time codes. That automatically updated, so I would export edit index timecodes.csv, and yep, I do want to replace that. Close that out, run the script. Now I got my new time codes, and I just put that in YouTube. So yeah, it took a little bit of setting up, but once I get it set up, man, it is so much better than manually typing in the times and stuff like that, and sometimes adjusting it over time. If I'm doing it for a live stream, I'm literally going to download the live stream just so I can do it in this fashion, because doing it online and manually typing in the timings is a pain. Being able to reference the waveform and sliding the markers rather than punching in numbers, so nice. And since I have a program written, it's nice and streamlined, and the script automatically opens up the file so I can copy and paste it too, which is really cool. So yeah, that's essentially how I do time codes for my videos. So all those time codes you see, they were done in this fashion. So it was done relatively efficiently. I might even have time codes for this video, I'm not sure. I only do it if I think it's worth doing. So yeah, that's how I do time codes.